I wrote this in two parts, part 1 and 2. The second part goes into specifically Jesus and the New Testament. Mammon is the biblical term for the demon of money. I think it's funny that we have these semantical problems with words like demon. I've heard people say, like, you know, well, Jesus was wrong. Epilepsy is a disease, and it's we've got a medication that works now. And I just laugh because I think it's just semantical. What was once called a demon, we think of it differently, but what the fuck is the difference? The thing that gets into your system and causes all kinds of disorder. The thing about mammon is people actually think that it's a part of themselves. Mammon, the root of all evil, part 1. Poverty is society's way of saying, we don't find value in you or your work. Thanks, society. I find very little value in your work as well. Perhaps we're just not a match. I will, however, continue making my work accessible online, for I know someday it will be of value, particularly to those whom acknowledge the suffering within themselves and strive to move beyond it. As the work of an unknown artist from the turn of the 19th century continues to guide me, I know there's value in this experience, this documentation, this lifelong artistic endeavor. For some of us, art is more than entertainment. It's the only path out. Although my past was filled with unawareness, on the verge of 33, truth crashed into me, toppled over me, forced me to reckon with it, to reconcile it. And as long as I am aligned with it, I will always try to pay it forward. In that, I live and die with no regrets, in harmony with life and death, bound by nothing to nothing. Though life without money in the 21st century in America is an incessant struggle. I had several opportunities in my life to serve Mammon. The first half of my 2012 album, Ride, and the 2018 rock project, Rakefire, were my two sellouts. I made very little money, but learned my lesson. My lesson was to never again blaspheme talent for money. To use the artist in service of a corrupted society is the ultimate blasphemy. I learned that sustenance comes naturally, and the artist finds its expression naturally. To use one's divinity, one's talents in the pursuit of money is a virtueless endeavor, no matter how one goes about it. The human mind can produce all kinds of excuses as to why wealth is an acceptable endeavor, a necessary pursuit. But no matter how one goes about pursuing money, it's an exclusive pursuit, and within exclusion there is only corruption. To aspire towards a world where everyone has money is an inclusive aspiration. In this inclusive aspiration, I am not rich because they are not poor. But one cannot become rich without the juxtaposition of poverty. The pursuit of wealth is, I want to have more than them. If everyone were wealthy, the concept of rich would be redundant and obsolete. But I'm pursuing money so I can make the world a better place. Once I'm rich, I can start helping people. I've heard this sentiment repeated over and over throughout my life, particularly from fellow musicians and artists. We justify our ambition by qualifying it with some elusive idealism. We believe that if we repeatedly served a corrupt industry within a corrupt society over the course of decades, eventually the scales will tilt in our favor and we can begin helping other people whom served the same corrupt society which made us wealthy. There's an innate arrogance in assuming once I'm rich, I'll spend the money better than the other people. It's exclusive no matter how one goes about it. I'll be philanthropic once I get rich. But why not be philanthropic now, without leeching off society first? No matter how you go about getting rich, you have to suck it out of the pie from somewhere. If you're completely honest with yourself, you want people to believe you're special. You want exclusive treatment from your society first. Then you want to show your society how good you are by giving some of the pie back to the not as special as you people. The fact is, money is always an exclusive ambition. Let's look at this sentiment once more. I'm pursuing money so I can make the world a better place. Once I'm rich, I can start helping people. Here's another way of saying the same thing. Once my corrupt society knows how good I am, it'll reward me with riches, and I'll do good things with my riches because I want to make the world a better place. Are you certain that you know how to make the world a better place? Or do you just want the world to become more like you? You want to make the world more like how you think the world ought to be. What's hiding behind this sentiment is, I was born into a corrupt society and I chose to service corruption by enriching myself, and although I've spent zero time on earth contemplating the existential nature of the world into which I was born, or the society into which I was thrust, I'm certain that I know what the world needs to be a better place, and I'm certain that I will use my own enrichment via corruption to serve my certainty of how the world should be. I want my society to recognize that I'm better than most people and that I'll become better than most people. Why not skip the society part and move straight on to bettering oneself? Because as long as you're pretending your ambition is virtuous, you don't have to face it. As long as your ambition for wealth, fame, recognition, sex, drugs, and other compulsions are disguised as virtues for the betterment of the world, you won't be forced to reckon with those desires. You're born with those desires, and you'll die with those desires. And even those of us who satisfy all of our ambitions and desires will not find true fulfillment, because those desires and ambitions only grow exponentially. We will always desire one more thing that our neighbor doesn't have. Always desire a better-looking trophy wife, a faster car, a bigger house, etc. Even billionaires compete with other billionaires. Desire is just a game. And at the root of it all, Mammon rules this runaway train. At the helm of society, nothing, no one, just a false ideal, a self-driving machine, a figment of human imagination, cotton paper, printed green, with the faces of society's past. Nowadays, it's all just numbers and machines which rule over us, numbers which propel this runaway train ever so elusively towards that inevitable cliff. Perhaps an even more common approach to the service of corruption is simply denying it altogether. My job isn't corrupt, so I'm not serving corruption. To ignore corruption is to serve it. Every link in the hierarchy of a corrupt society serves it, from top to bottom. Even those who recognize the corruption within their chosen fields will say, if I didn't do this job, somebody else would. But this is only true as long as each individual chooses to serve corruption. Every moment, every movement towards the cause of an inclusive world began when someone made a conscious decision not to serve corruption, not to serve his and her own exclusive agenda. Poverty isn't the antidote to corruption. The antidote to corruption is living entirely consciously, entirely inclusively, making every decision, performing every action in service to the whole. Conscious inclusivity may not pay off immediately, but in the long run, eventually, it most definitely will pay off. Check back with me in 2025. Poverty isn't a virtue in itself. The true test of virtue is one who's chauffeured in a limousine from fancy restaurant to five-star hotel one night and then sleeping in the woods and eating only nuts and apples for weeks afterwards. And in both experiences, one's inner thoughts, emotions, feelings, and energies remain exactly the same. If one can remain perfectly fulfilled in both settings without a single concern for future or past, without attachment, without longing for what one has or doesn't have, then one has found true equanimity. But I want to make sure my children are taken care of. Your children would be better taken care of in a society which wasn't plagued by corruption. I can't imagine being a child in the 2020s, not in this society. We're reaching a tipping point. Either be the solution or serve corruption. it's not going to come from the top down. Does anyone really believe children who grow up wealthy are better off in any way? There's nothing you could do to poison your children worse than handing them over to mammon. Only a corrupt society would propagate this insane belief that one who has material wealth does not struggle. Firstly, it's not true. Human beings who have no equanimity will always find a struggle. Everything will become a struggle. Secondly, the struggle is what leads us to equanimity. It's not just superheroes who find their powers through struggle. It's not just a cliche. It's an existential fact of life that we evolve through hardship. In my life, my music, my writings and videos, this is the focal point around which my entire life's work revolves. Face your demons. Evolve. Become what you never thought possible. Be the fish who jumped out of the water and walked. Be the thing that falls from the tree and learns to fly. Turn hardship into evolution. Use the struggle. Face the shadows. Be your own light. Human beings who find comfort, stability, and pseudo-security often become inert. The silver spoon is a slippery slope. Softening the struggle with a silver spoon may simply prolong the evolution, but it's more likely a spoonful of poison. Either way, the struggle will come. Most importantly, though, children learn through experience. The dad and mom whose lives revolve around money inadvertently teach their children these false values, and the children grow up in the same redundant cycles of more. Can anyone on earth breathe in exponentially without ever breathing out? That's the law of American capitalism. Exponential gains market means everyone breathes in exponentially. But what's really happening is swaths of people are doing all the out-breaths while a few up top do all the breathing in. I'm intentionally using the biblical name for the demon associated with money, mammon, because I live in a society which pretends to model itself around that guy, Jesus, who repeatedly spoke against the pursuit of money, flipped over the tables of businessmen, admonished rich men to give away all their wealth, spoke, "It's easier to fit a camel through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven," and "Ye cannot serve God and mammon." In part 2, I discuss all the New Testament verses associated with mammon and the pursuit of money.